Good morning, good evening, good night. For us here in Ireland, it is good night. It's 7, so it's our time to have our live. And today, as we have this wonderful agreement with ESP, is a special talk with our friend Roberto Watanabe. He is keeping like this year is the year of the Spirit's book, and today is the second time and he will talk about the Spirit's book, creation and the vital principle. Well, good evening, Roberto. How are you?
Hello, Stefan. Hello, everybody. I'm fine. Thank you for the opportunity to be here again with you all.
Good, good, good. So, um, in order to start, let me do the initial prayer. So, let's raise up our thoughts towards our mentors of this show, mentors of ESP and Spiritist Society of Ireland, to enlighten us, to enlighten our guests today. May reach out all the people who are listening us online or those who will listen us in the future. So be it. Amen. So thank you everyone. I'm very short today because as you can listen from my voice, I'm in a bad shape today, but we are recovering and thank we have wonderful friends like Roberto recovering me today. So Roberto, thank you. I will put you here, and I'm in the background if you need me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stefan. So, today we are going to continue our study of the Spiritist book, and we are going to see chapter 3 and 4 of the part 1 of the book. And chapter 3 is about the creation, and chapter 4 is about the vital principle, which vital principle is what gives us life to us and to all other uh, living beings, right? Beings that are alive. So let's start by talking about the creation. Kardec makes some questions to the spirits, and they uh, give him lots of answers about the creation of the universe, starting by the formation of the world. So he starts by saying that the universe is comprised of the infinite number of worlds that we can see, and also those that we cannot see, because well, today we can see much more than we could see at Kardec's time because of the telescope that we have now. But at his time, there were lots of galaxies, stars that they could not see, and that today we can see. And maybe in the future we will be able to see much more than we can today, right? So this universe, the reason tell us, the Spirit says to Kardec, that the universe could not have created itself, right, by itself, or to be a work of a chance, just came up from nothing, right? So that's why the Spiritist comments that it must be the work of God. So God is the creator of the universe, of all worlds that we can see and those that we cannot see in the universe. And how did God create the universe? Kardec asked, right? And then the Spirit answers, God created it by its divine will. So in the book of Genesis, Genesis, I mean the Genesis from Moses, right? Because we have Genesis from Moses and we have Genesis from Kardec. In this case, the book of Genesis from Moses, we can read that Moses tell us that God said, "Let there be light," and then there was light. Right? So light here is the symbol for the creation of the universe. We might imagine a completely darkness, and then suddenly God says, "Let there be light," and then we see the whole universe coming up to life, let's say. Okay, and such worlds are formed by the condensation of matter scattered through space. Which kind of matter is that? It is the universal fluid, which is through many combinations, it becomes more dense, more tangible, and then the worlds come up from such matter, from such a transformed matter, right? So such worlds can it has a beginning, but it can disappear some point in time in the future. And then the matter that composes that world is scattered through space and then can combine again to to create, let's say, new worlds, right? So this is what happens. It's something similar to what happens to our bodies, right? When we die, when we pass away, our body, the matter that composes our body, are scattered in nature, and then such scattered matter will compose new bodies, right? So bodies of everything, right? From animated or inanimated things. So, uh, just to have an idea, we brought here an image of a star nursery, right? So, I believe you have already seen such image here, which is an image of the formation. You can see this dark matter here, kind of a fluid transformed into this matter, and from such matter we have the stars that come up from such matter. So that's why the scientists call star nursery, right? Because many stars are born from such matter, and then we can see that from billions of stars form a galaxy, right? So all this is happening all the time in the universe. We can see here uh, star stars being born, but we also have other pictures, other images that show us the end of a star, right? So that's why the worlds also have a life cycle, let's say, right? They are being born, they developing, and then someday in the future they come to an end, right? And then the matter is scattered throughout the space again, and though that matter can be form new stars, for example, right? So this is what's happening all the time in the universe. That's why uh, the Spirit says to Kardec that the creation is eternal. Huh? God is eternally creating. So this is an image that I would like to bring to you. And then after the formation of the world, we have also the formation of living beings. For example, plants, animals, and in animals, we ourselves as humans. And then what we can see here in the Spirit's book is that in beginning all was chaos. The elements were all jumbled together. We can imagine, for example, our Earth in the beginning. It was basically, practically a fireball, right? A fireball. That, that was the earth in the beginning. The elements were all jumbled together, right? So all was chaos because there was no order in the beginning. Then, little by little, as such a ball of fire lose its heat by the cold that comes from the space, the universe space, then little by little, each thing is settled into its proper place. And then the organic elements began to combine. The moment the force that had kept them apart ceased, right? Because in the beginning, you can imagine such ball of fire, and everything is in a constant movement, right? So nothing can be stable in such situation. But as the earth starts to cool down, then um, we have the elements have opportunity to combine. And then we can imagine, for example, the formation of the atoms, for example, okay? And for the atoms then combine into molecules, and molecules afterwards combine into bodies and into things, right? So these prototypes of all living beings remain latent and inert, waiting for the proper time, because by the time these elements began to combine, um, there's still there is still much heat in our earth, right? So life could not come up in such a environment. So they remain latent and inert. And then when the proper time comes, when the temperature and earth are mild, then life begin to sprout, right? So that's why the spirit says that then the beings of each species come together and reproduces by themselves, right? So we can see that by in the beginning we have life in the ocean, right? So was kind of a very small beings, and then from the ocean it comes to earth. Then we have the development of the vegetables, plants, and afterwards we have the development of the animals, and the last one is the human being, right? So this is similar to what Moses by himself tells us in the book of Genesis that he wrote about 3,200 years ago, right? So this is how the living beings came up in well, in our world, in our earth, but in any other world also, right? So before the formation of the earth, where were the organic elements? Kardec asks the spirits, right? So then this and the spirit says to him that the organic elements were either in space among the spirits, which means in the spiritual realm or spiritual dimension, or in other planets. So when the proper time comes, then such organic elements are brought, let's say, right, from other planets or from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. So when we see the Genesis from written by Kardec, for example, he poses there a hypothesis about how such organic elements came from other planets. And one of the hypotheses is that when a comet passed through, for example, the Halley comet, right? So when a comet passed through Earth, then it leaves here such organic elements, and from that organic elements we have life in our planet. And the human species, the spirit says to Kardec, was among the organic elements and came at just the right time. So, which is something about 1.5 million ago. And then the early humans, we can think about the humans that lived in caves, for example. They absorbed into themselves the elements for their formation, formate their body, and they passed those elements on by the laws of reproduction, right? So that's why today we don't have a spontaneous appearance of human beings, right? Because we reproduce ourselves, through the laws of the reproduction. But sometimes in the beginning, there was a kind of a spontaneous. We, what we can see today, because here we could understand that the spirit would be telling us that in some time the human beings suddenly appear, right? So from 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 the formation of the organic elements. Today we know that it is not that way, right? Because the human beings is the top on the animal scale, right? So in and before the animal scale, you have the vegetable beings, for example. You have the beings from the ocean, and you have the or a series of beings, right? So human being is also the last of this series. So the same happened with all the other species of living beings, right? Other animals and other vegetables. And when we say living beings, we are separated here from the beings that are not alive, right? For example, a rock, a stone, or something like air, for example, water, right? So these are not living beings. And what define a living being is what we will see in the chapter 4, which is the vital principle, and how the earth was peopled, right, from human beings. In the Genesis of Moses, we we learn there that Adam was the first man, right? From Adam, all other human beings came up in earth. But now we well, at the Kardec's time, yeah, already, and they knew that the man known as Adam was not the first man, right? Because Adam is supposed to have lived about, let's say, 6,000 years from in the past, right? So 6,000 years is too little a time for from a single man, the whole humanity being developed, right? So now we see Adam more as a symbol of some some uh, some race, right? So it's not he was not the progenitor of all the humanity today, right? So uh, the spirit tells Kardec that, or Kardec comments here, that probably he was one of those who survived the one of the great cataclysm, right? A great flood, for example, right? That had modified the Earth's surface. So some regard Adam, Kardec's comments, and with good reason, as a myth, right? So, or allegory, right? Personifying one of the world's earliest ages. So he could be, for example, um, the man who give raise to some specific race, but I believe that even that would not be the case, because 16,000 years is too little a time, right? A time too short to have even a race to develop from a man. So it's more like a myth, as Kardec comments here. And then, because today in humanity we have a diversity of the human race. And then next talk, after discussing how the human being came up in our world, Kardec starts to think about the human races. And then he comments that the physical and moral differences that distinguish the Earth's various races, for example, the let's say the Asian race, the white race, the black race. So uh, they such differences come from differences from climate, lifestyle, and custom. Right. So he says that humankind appeared at the various points on the globe and at the different periods of time. So it's very complex development here, right? So this humankind that appeared in different points in time and at different periods of time, points of the globe and periods of time, different periods of time, they start to spread throughout the different climatic zones, and then they they find each other. They marry between themselves, and then new types arise from this such interbreeding, right? So, or between or among such different races. So from that we have the situation that we have in our world today, right? So, but what Kardec points out is that we are all brothers and sisters in God because we are all animated by the same spirit, right? So we are all spirit, uh, which has the as attributes. We have reason, we have a moral sense, we have a consciousness of ourselves, and we have a free will. Right? So such attributes is what is it makes part of our essence as human beings, and that is common to all human beings. So that's why we are brothers and sisters, right? We are animated by the same spirit, and we all strive towards the same goal, which is perfection, as we will see later in the spirited book. Right? So here is what Kardec talks about the diversity of the human race. And then until now, we talk about the Earth, right? The formation of the Earth, and then how the life came up in our Earth, and how the human race showed up in our planet, and about also the diversity of the human races. But life is not does life does not exist only in our planet, right? In our Earth, because there are a plurality of worlds in the universe, and they are all inhabited. So that's why the spirits tell us, right? So, because, for example, in the medieval times, and this comes from Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, right? He thought that the Earth was at the center of the universe, and all the sun, the moon, the other planets, the stars, was just spinning around our Earth, and there was life only in our planet. There was intelligent beings only in our planet. So that's why it was the concept that they had until the 15th century, right? When then Copernicus started to change the situation by telling us that the Earth was not the center of the universe, right? The geocentric concept uh, changed by Copernicus to tell us that Earth, for example, was the sun was the center of our solar system. But then afterwards, scientists discovered that the sun itself is not in the center of the universe either, right? So then we have the situation that we know now, right? So um, all the globes spanning throughout space are inhabited. That's one of the basic principles of the spiritism, right? We know that what are the basic principles of spiritism? First, God. Second, the immortality of the soul. Third, the law of progress. Fourth, the reincarnation. Fifth, the communication between the material world and the spiritual world. And sixth is the plurality of inhabited world. Right? So this is one of the basic principles. That's what is being said here in this part of the spiritual book. So God has populated all worlds with living beings because all have an objective, right, set by the divine providence. So like Kardec says, the stars and the whole universe was not created by God to just please us from Earth, right? So each one of such worlds have their objective, right? So it all work together the final objective of the providence. And we could also think that we from planet Earth are the most intelligent people of the universe. So that would be a mistake, right? Because like the Spirit says to Kardec, we are far from being the first intelligence, goodness or perfection, right? So there are worlds which are much more developed than our Earth, and we mean the humanity of such worlds are much more developed than we ourselves, right? So that's something that he is explaining here. We can see in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in chapter 3, the Spirit of Saint Augustine tell us, right, about the kind of a classification of the worlds. So you have the primitive worlds, when the Spirit has its first incarnation. Then we have the worlds of trials and expiation, which is our world, our earth, and then you have the regenerative world, the happy world, and celestial world. Right? So you can see how much worlds are more perfect than us, and because of that, the physical composition of all the different globals also are not the same, right? Because you can imagine that in a happy world, for example, people in that such a happy world is a world on the you have the predomination of good, right? So there is no bad, no evil there. So you can imagine that in such a world, people in that world doesn't need to have a body so dense as we have, right? So they for sure they have a much lighter body, right? So that's why Kardec says here that the physical composition are different. We could also imagine that for most probably such worlds that are very evolved, we even cannot see with our sight, right? Our physical sight. So that's what we can imagine from this part here. Uh, and then we also can imagine, well, the Earth is a certain distance from the sun, right? So it's a distance from the sun where the heat from the sun does not burn us, but we have enough heat just not to live in a frozen planet, right? So it's a ideal distance. But and then we could ask, well, and what about such planets? We are far from the sun. How can they have light there and heat there, right? So we can imagine such a planet as completely involved in darkness and in a kind of a frozen world, right? Because the sun is too far from them. But that's not the case, right? Because what the Spirit answers to Kardec, to his question, is that in that world, the electricity plays a different role that it plays in our Earth. So you can imagine that electricity doesn't give them such light and such heat that they need. Well, actually, we ourselves, right, today, with electricity, we use it to create light and heat, right? So you can imagine that this kind of utilization of electricity is done in such a world. So and also he repeats again here, right? The Spirit he repeats again that not all beings are made of the same matter. So it means that we can imagine a kind of a spirit which does not feel cold or feel heat, for example, right? So uh, we ourselves know that, for example, when we die, we leave our physical body and we go to the spiritual realm with our perispirit. And such perispirit, with this perispirit, with our perispirit, we don't feel pain, we don't feel heat or cold, right? So we are not affected by that. So that's what would be the matter of such beings in such a world far from the sun, right? So that's why Kardec says here, if we had never seen fish, then we would not understand how certain beings could live in water, right? So that's just a comparison here. And the same applies to other worlds. We don't know how is their environment, their atmosphere, and which kind of electricity they have there to well to go on in their lives, right? So that's something important that he mentioned here. Now we are going to talk about the vital principle, which is what gives us life, to us and all the other live beings. So Kardec started by differentiating between organic and inorganic beings. Organic beings are those possessing an inner source of activities that gives them life. So the animals, for example, right? The plants or vegetables, they are born, they grow, they reproduce, and they die. Right? So that's why I include human beings, animals, and plants. And what is inorganic beings? Are those that possess neither vitality nor their own ability to move. So it's just the minerals, water, air, right? So they are just formed by the aggregation of matter. So there is a difference here, right? So, and then he's starting by talking about this because next step is well, but what the organic beings have that the inorganic doesn't have, right? So that's what he the next step, and but he says also that the one and the same force unite the material elements in both organic and inorganic bodies. So it means here that, for example, our body, our human body, are mainly formed by four elements, right? So oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and carbon, right? So these four elements is about, I don't know exactly, but well, almost 100% of our body. So these same these same elements and that compose our physical body in the material thinking materially, right? But these same elements form some inorganic bodies also. For example, water, for example, right? So it's formed by hydrogen and oxygen, right? So two molecules of two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen, right? So H2O, we say, right? So and we can see that the same chemical element that form water form is part of our of also of our body, and the force that unite these elements, these chemical elements, is the same either in our physical body, material body, or in water, for example, right? So that's what Kardec is saying here. The law of attraction is the same for all. So uh, uh, for these elements, we have electromagnetism, for example, is the same, right? Either for an organic or inorganic body. And what distincts the matter of the organic body is that they are animalized by the vital principle. Here we have the difference, right? So the material elements are the same, but the organic body, besides the material elements, they have the vital principle. It's a kind of a fluid we can think, right? So it's something that flow through our body and they uh, give us life. So that's why the Spirit says to Kardec, life is an effect produced by the action of the vital principle upon matter. So, as we have the vital principle circulating in our body, we are we are alive, right? When by some reason the vital principle ceases to circulate in our body, that is death. Right? So then we die. So so vital principle is um, important element to maintain life. So, however, the Spirit comments, without matter, the agent is not life, just as matter cannot be alive without the agent. The agent here is the vital principle, right? So is what I'm telling here, right? I'm saying here. Our body, our body are alive because we have the matter of the matter of our body, which is interacting with the vital principle. So the vital principle is acting upon our body, but to have life, the vital principle needs also of our material body, right? So that's what the Spirit is saying here. So the vital principle gives life to all beings, right, that absorb and assimilate it, right? So that's very important here. And then next step, Kardec says that the vital principle is one of the elements required in the composition of the universe, along with the spirit and matter. So um, we are spirits, and we have our body, matter, and we also uh, just we as spirit or soul and our body as matter is not enough to have life, right? So we need the third component, which is the vital principle. And what is interesting is that this vital principle has its origin in the modification of the universal matter, right? So universal matter is the universal fluid. So we can see that from the universal fluid, from its transformation, we have matter itself, tangible matter. We have also the vital principle, and we have also the fluids, right? For example, the fluids that compose our perispirit. It's not a tangible matter, right? But it's not the universal fluid. It's something in between, right? So from the universe fluid, so we have two products, let's say, right? So matter, tangible matter, vital principle, and the spiritual fluid, we say, right? So vitality is a special property of the universal matter, and which has undergone, like I said, certain transformation or modification. Is what we call the magnetic fluid or the animalized electric fluid, the link between spirit and matter. So if it is the link between spirit and matter, you can imagine that such a magnetic fluid is important to life and important also to maintain spirit and matter connected. And for that purpose, we can imagine that it's closely connected to our perispirit also, right? Because perispirit is what links the spirit and matter. And when you go to the spirit center, for example, you take a pass there, what the medium there is doing on us, right? By giving us the pass, right? He's just transmitting his magnetic fluid to us. So that's what happened there, right? So well, that's what we are talking here. But such magnetic fluid is what keep us alive. So, and what Kardec says is that such vitality is in a latent state whenever the vital agent is not united with the body. So it means that the vital principle is spread also, right, on the air, on the environment. And then when a child is being born, then this spirit that united with the body at the time of the conception uh, takes some part of the vital principle. Then you have a life beginning there, right? So by 9 months until the baby is born, right? So since the beginning, you have also the vital agent acting there on that first cell, which is ourselves when we are conceived by our parents. So that's what happened here. And then, if we are talking about the vital principle, we talk about life and also death, right? Like I already mentioned it, right? Because when the organs of the organic beings wear out, uh, uh, they die. Right? We die when our our our, our organs wear out, right? So the organs, because the organs are impregnated with the vital fluid and reacted upon one another, right? So uh, the vital principle is circulating throughout our body, throughout among the organs, right, of our body. And when this happen in a, in a, in a in a normal way, then we have health. Right? When some organs start to have problems, then the vital fluid does not flow through that organ. Then we have illness, right? So this, this dynamic between our organs is very important to life, right? And the vital fluid is circulating through all our body, and such reciprocity of actions, Kardec says, results from their being in harmony, which is health, right? So their functions cease when something destroys such harmony, then sickness, right, or illness. So when the elements essential for the functions of the organ are destroyed, then it's death, right? Because then the vital fluid cannot flow anymore. So then the organism dies, right? And that's why Kardec compares our organic bodies, or any organic bodies. You can think about a plant or if an animal. They may be compared to electronic devices, right? In which the vital fluids activity produces life. So, in the case of electronic devices, electricity is as the electricity flows through the electronic device, then it moves, right? So when the electricity stops to flow, then the electronic device stops. Right? So that the same happens with our bodies or any organic bodies. And the cessation causes death, right? Because electronic devices, you can turn on the electronic device, and then electricity flows, and then it moves. Then you stop you turn off, and then it stops. But then you can do it other times, right? But when the electronic device is not functioning, let's say their parts wear out, then you cannot flow any electricity anymore, right? That doesn't uh, and then that is something that in us is death, right? That's what the comparison that Kardec is doing here. And after death, what happens, right? What happens after death? Because we are souls with our material body, and we have this vital principle flowing through our body, right? So after death, the matter that compose our body, the oxygen, the hydrogen, the carbon, the nitrogen, and other. Well, you have iron, we have many other chemical elements in our body. Such inert matter decomposes and goes to nature, right? And into new bodies in nature. And the vital principle returns to the vital mass. Like I said, right? The vital principle is all around us, right? And then when we need that, then we take some part of that. When we die, we return that to such mass. That's why that's why it says that the decomposed matter undergo new combinations to form new bodies, new beings, and these new beings draw the principle of life when, for example, a person is conceived, right, by just conceived by his or her parents. um, that first cell takes some part of this principle of life, right, and activity of the body begins, right? So, and draw from the universal source. Right? We absorb such a principle of life, or vital principle, we assimilate also from the food that we eat, for example, there are our vital principle also, because we must recover, right, such a vital principle. But then when we die, we restore it again to the universal source, right? And then we cease to exist. So that's what Kardec explained here. And another thing is that the amount of vital principles that we have varies among us, right? Because you can see, for example, if you can imagine a very sick person, right? A very sick person, that doesn't have the free movement, right? They are more inert, right? Then they move and then think and then act. And so you can imagine that there is a low amount of a vital fluid flowing through that body. Right? And you can imagine an athlete, for example, a football player, for example, is full of vital fluid, right? Because that's why the amount varies, right, between individuals. And those who are saturated with this fluid can transmit to another. This is the pass that I mentioned, right? When the person is there, the medium is there at the spiritist center, giving a pass to someone who comes to the spiritist center. He is giving some of his fluid, right? So to the people who came in there. So uh, such fluid can become depleted, insufficient to maintain life. Right? So then you can imagine the situation of Jesus, for example. We see a situation when the person was practically dead, and then Jesus transmitted such a vital principle, and then the person comes to life. Right? So um, because the person was in that situation because there was insufficient amount of a vital principle for maintaining his or her life, right? And then when Jesus transmits that principle, then the person comes to life again, right? So that is a very dynamic, uh, let's say, how this dynamic of the vital principle, right, in our body and according to the different individuals, right? And that's why we have some whose life is more active, more energetic, and more superabundant, right? So other less, other possess barely enough of such a vital principle. So that's very interesting to see here. Then now we are going to talk about intelligence instinct, right? So we are spirits, we have intelligence. The animals, we say they have instinct because the animals in general, they not think, right? They not have, they not make plans for their lives. Huh? They just acting by instinct. They reproduce, they look for food, they take care of their children, let's say, just by instinct, right? But we spirits, we think, we plan, right? We have a free will, we have a moral sense, right? And these are different things here, right? Intelligence is one thing, instinct is another. And intelligence as the vital principle also um, intelligence, no, or no, intelligence in this case, no, it's not like the vital principle. Vital principle depends on matter, right? And matter from vital principle. Intelligence in this case is independent of matter, right? So they are independent of each other because intelligence is not an attribute of a vital principle, or Kardec explained here, because plants, for example, they are alive. Plants have a vital principle, but the plants do not think, right? So that he is an argument here to prove that intelligent matter are independent. And a body may be alive yet lack intelligence. A rock, for example, right? No, a rock, no, a plant. A plant is alive but does not have intelligence. And but intelligence can only be expressed through material organs. So in such case, we need a body, right? So to manifest intelligence, we ourselves, we need our brain to who thinks is this, the spirit thinks, but in order to manifest, we need our brain or material organ, right? So that's what Kardec is saying here. So that's why only the union with the spirit endows animalized matter with intelligence. So we can understand here that the animalized the intelligence you have only in animalized and only organic beings have intelligence, but not all organic beings, because plants are organic beings but do not have intelligence. We human beings are organic beings and we have intelligence. Animals in general are organic beings, and they are more dominated by instinct, but they have rudiment of intelligence, rather rudimentary intelligence, because they, in sometimes, in some situations, they have some plan, right? So a lion, for example, looking for his the, let's say, the animal that he's going to go after, right? To have its food. So he have a kind of a plan to attack that animal, right? So this is a kind of a rudimentary intelligence, which is also is just connected to the conservation of the life of the animal. It's not the intelligence like we have, right? So that's what we Kardec is saying here. Intelligence is a special faculty, right? So possessed by certain classes of organic beings. It endows them with thought. So it's our case, right? We as human beings. Intelligence endows us with the thought, the willpower to act, and the awareness of our own existence, our consciousness, right? Self-consciousness and individuality. Intelligence also endows us with the means to establish relations with this external world and to provide our own needs. So we use intelligence for all that, right? We plant crops, for example, just in order to have food. Right? We build houses in order to live in that house, right? So that's intelligence, giving us the means, and we also establish laws, for example, to live in harmony with our fellow beings, right? So this is the would be the external world, let's say, right? So then we may therefore distinguish the following. Kardec says we have the inanimate beings formed of matter alone, right? The solid bodies of mineral, for example. They don't have vitality, they don't have the vital principle, and they don't have intelligence either, right? So, and then we have the animated non-thinking beings. They are formed of a matter and endowed with vitality, with a vital principle, but with no intelligence, which is the plants, right? The vegetables. And then we have the animated beings formed of a matter, endowed with vitality, and possessed of an intelligent principle, which is mainly us as human beings, right? So intelligence is a faculty then proper to each being and comprises its mental individuality, right? So by our intelligence, we have our self-consciousness, for example, and the consciousness of our individuality. And that's why it is distinct from matter and from vital principle. So you have matter, you have vital principle, and you have intelligence. And in we human beings, we have all of that, right? In plants, you have also matter and vital principle. In a rock, for example, you have only matter, right? And what is instinct? Instinct is a non-reasoning intelligence through which all beings provide for their own needs, right? So the animals, the animals built their let's say their houses. That there are some birds which build houses for themselves. They have their children. Let's say that they look for their conservation all by instinct, right? So, and the instinct and intelligence are mixed in us. For example, we have intelligence, but we still have the instinct, right? Because there are things that we do that we do not think, right? For example, when we eat food, we don't think about, well, let's now digest the food that I just ate, right? So that happens by instinct, automatically, right? And that's why we can distinguish one from the other, right? Because instinct does not involve thinking, and intelligence involves thinking. And instinct, Kardec says, can lead us to the good, and it almost guides us to the good, sometimes more surely than our reason. It never errs, because instinct is something that is automatic in us, right? For example, the instinct of conservation. This is automatic in us. We all want to live, right? So, and we all we do the most to maintain us alive, right? So, and that's instinct. But reason, because of Kardec will comment in the book Genesis, written by him, that because of a selfishness, because of a passion, then we because of a bad education, then intelligence can make mistakes, right? And instinct does not make it. But that does not mean that instinct is superior to intelligence, right? Because intelligence, of course, is superior, but it's not always an infallible guide. It's here. When this distorted by pride, selfishness, and faulty education, then intelligent make mistakes, right? So instinct does not reason. Reason calls for choice and endows human with free will, which we already said. Instinct is a kind of a rudimentary intelligence, like in the example of a lion looking for its prey. Uh, and the manifestation of instinct are always spontaneous, while those of intelligence are a result of thought and deliberate actions. Instinct manifests in various ways according to the different species and their needs. So, according to the needs, the instinct manifests in that specific way, right? So, in beings with consciousness and perceptions of external things, like ourselves, instinct allies with intelligence, and that is with will and freedom. So that's what we have today to talk about all this matter of our creation, vital principle, and intelligence and instinct. Right? So next presentation, next month, we are going to see the second part, or starting the second part of the spiritual book, and we will be talking about spirits. Okay, so that's for today, and thank you for having the patience to listen to me. It was a little bit long today.
But it's good to know, to see how easy you make a complex topic. I
Very
know
long.
it's an overview. I know
Mm.
it's a ballpark, but as well, thank you. It's it's a great kickoff for those who doesn't know anything about the vital principle or about the creation.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
thank you, my friends. We have here today Leila Spiden, Luviem, and Trav O'Donnell. So thank you guys for watching us and be with us.
yeah. Lady Speeding is here from FASP. She's an
Yeah,
educator here in FASP. Yeah, she's a colleague from
good.
mine.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, my friend,
Okay,
I
then we
want you to
meet
have a close
again.
of your.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we- we'll meet again on March 14th.
March 14th. Okay,
Yeah.
I will note here. Yeah.
Okay.
And would you mind to do the initial prayer, the final prayer?
Fine. Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay, so thank you all for uh, having the patience to listen to me. And then we are going to end our meeting today, thanking all the spiritual benefactors who always guide us in our study, in our preparation, and during the presentation that we do regarding such concepts of the spiritism. And what what we what I talk right is because of them. What I talk wrong is from me. And but anyway, we always um, thank them for they are always supporting us in these tasks that we have on this spiritism. So we also thank Jesus for this opportunity to be reunited here in His name, and finally to the Heavenly Father for the opportunity of life, for the creation of this universe, so that we as spirits can evolve towards the perfection and to be happy like He is. So be it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, FASP, for the opportunity to be together here. And I don't forget, my friends, today at 8:30 we do have our virtual healing. Just need to go to our page on YouTube, Spiritism Ireland, and you see the event live. So you don't need to register, you don't need to do anything. Just go to our YouTube page. It's 15 minutes, but it's a moment we can pray for ourselves and for those we want to reach out. Okay. And I'll be back on Thursday. I hope with a better voice.
Mhm.
And Roberto, I'll see you on the 14th of March.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
again.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, Teresa Lara Faria. She say thank you. So thank you, Teresa. Oh, have a good week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.